I started out wanting to know about, okay, well, how does this whole life policy work? And what's a paid up additions and what's a MEC and what's a, all valid things to know, right? But I think like so many other people, I was trying to look at the product and compare that to all the like, okay, well, how does that compare to my Roth IRA? How does that compare to this or that? When really I think Jason Rose says this a lot. Look, what does that have to do with financing the things that you're trying to finance in life? Do you realize that you're already a banker? You're just banking on someone else's terms. You're carrying out activities and things that are going to benefit someone else for the rest of your life. And what we're saying is if we can take that back, if you can start building your own banking system, your own banking business, then all these things you're going to do anyway, they can profit you and your family for the rest of your life instead of someone else.
Well, Becca, thank you for joining us on the Infinite Banking Initiative podcast.
You are so welcome. I'm thrilled to be here and have this conversation with you guys.
Well, I love your story of how you discovered IBC. Will you please share that with us and our listeners and viewers?
Well, I think it might be more how IBC discovered me. Maybe, I don't know. I wasn't looking for it for sure. I came from a background, I would say I was a Dave Ramsey disciple. I would binge listen to his podcast on road trips, and it was bad, really bad, right? So kind of came from that paradigm of get out of debt, debt is bad, all that kind of thing. Whole life is a scam, basically. And so back in 2020, I had a friend who had kind of gotten turned on to this using whole life as a way to pay off debt. Well, I was not interested for two basic reasons. Number one, we didn't have any debt because it was Dave Ramsey, right? And number two, whole life is obviously a scam, right? So I was, no, arms crossed, heels dug in. I don't even want to hear about it. But another mutual friend was going to invite her over to do a presentation. And she said, please, will you come? I know you kind of know about finances a little bit, just as a layperson. I was a teacher at the time. And so I agreed, like begrudgingly, I agreed to come and listen to this presentation. And I just remember thinking, well, I didn't know insurance worked like that. Or, I didn't know you could do that with life insurance. And I still don't know if I believe that she's right. I'm sure she means well. I'm sure she's she's a friend of mine. She's a nice person, but this can't be, you can't do this. Right. And so I left that presentation just kind of feeling pretty prideful that I was right and they were wrong, but I wanted to make sure. And so I started kind of digging in a little bit to some of the things she was talking about. And that led me eventually to the Nelson Nash Institute. And so I was like, okay, I think this is kind of where this idea came from. This looks like the starting place. And so I'm going to start here. And so I ordered Becoming Your Own Banker again, just to see what a scam this must be and prove myself right. And as fate would have it, that was during COVID. Our whole family got COVID around that time, and we weren't super sick. It wasn't serious, but we couldn't go anywhere. We were landlocked for 6 weeks or something like that. So I had lots of time on my hands. And I started down the internet rabbit trail of what is this infinite banking thing. And as you guys are well aware, there are lots of different viewpoints out there, and just trying to sift through what's the signal and what's the noise. And I always kept coming back to the Nelson Nash Institute, and this seems legit, even though I'm still not convinced. So the more I read, the more I studied. I read Becoming Your Own Banker. Eventually I read Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. I read How Privatized Banking Really Works. And the more I read, the more I learned, the more I started to kind of shift like, well, I think maybe there's something here. I might be wrong. Go figure. I might have been wrong in what I thought. And so, it was really a gradual process for me. I eventually, maybe 6 months later, looked up an authorized practitioner in my area and went and talked to him, and we ended up getting a policy. And it's just been this journey, this progression of just, definitely a paradigm shift, changing the way I think about money and our family, the way we think about money, and going from complete skeptic, this is a scam, to holy cow, people need to know about this. I'm going to go get lessons so I can teach this. I feel like my whole life, my background has been being a teacher, being a coach, being some sort of, I was on church staff for 11 years, trying to, encourage people, lead people. Not that I ever wanted any of that, but it seems like that's where I've always found myself. And so I don't see this as any different of, yeah, come here, let me show you what I've learned. Let me teach you what I've learned. If you want to know, I'll show you how to do this. And then let's walk together. Let me coach you along as we go. So to me, it just is kind of my whole life. I've kind of been teaching and coaching just in different realms. And so this is an exciting new way to use that, even if it was something I never saw coming in a million years.
So you were 100% convert, but it did take a long time for you to cross the T's, dot the I's, and make sure you weren't being led down the wrong path.
Yeah, I think I've always been one of those people that I want to know for myself. Like, I'll trust but verify, right? What you're saying makes sense, but I kind of need to see that for myself, and I needed to see it in action in my life as well too. I think before I felt comfortable teaching that to other people or sharing that with other people. And as my journey as an agent, I think I've struggled with, do I know enough yet? What if it's a question I don't know yet how to answer? What if it's a a business entity that I don't know anything about? All these things, and I think this is true of anybody, whether you're just starting IBC as a small P practitioner, just using your own life, or as an agent and teaching other people. This is like, there's this tension of learning between, I don't know everything yet, but I'm not where I started. But then again, if you get to where you think you know everything, isn't that the arrival syndrome that Nelson warned against, right? So we have to just kind of be okay with this. I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning, and I'm still going to learn for the rest of my life. This is, we talked about it being an exercise in imagination and reason and logic and prophecy. Like, imagination doesn't run out. There are ways to use this that I bet nobody's even thought of yet. And so I don't know. I want to keep that open-mindedness of, gosh, there's so much to learn. I'm never going to get bored with this. I know that much. I'm never going to get bored. I'm never going to think, well, this is sure is the same thing over and over, and I'm really tired of it. No, I mean, every situation is different. Every client's different. They have different goals. They have different dreams. They have different problems and challenges. And I've never seen anything quite like this that can address so many things with kind of the same strategy, the same line of thinking.
Yeah. That's why, we came up with that video series, Carlos, Bob, and I, way back in, I guess we started filming the Foundations of IBC back in 20. We named it the Foundations because Nelson said the same thing. IBC is a starting place, and it's a foundation. And that's why we named the book Building Your Warehouse of Wealth, because this is where you can warehouse your wealth, and you can launch that wealth anywhere where is you want to, or if you have money, opportunities will find you. If you have challenges, you have money to overcome those challenges. So the IBC is a philosophy, it's a concept, and it's total control if you understand how to do it responsibly. I say that every week, but it just beats home. So let me ask you one more question too. When you first heard about IBC and you started doing research, quote unquote, was that like a YouTube type research, or what was it? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I mean, it started out a Google search, like I'm sure a lot of people do. And we, Bruce Wayner was my mentor, and he said something that I share with people now as well. But be careful what you hear on the internet or what you listen to on the internet, because you might believe it, right? Because even knowing nothing, even just starting from scratch, I knew some of this stuff just sounded too like slick and salesy, and like, I don't think there's a whole lot of substance there. But there is substance. You just have to make sure you're going back to the source and looking in the right places.
Well, I mean, how do you, I mean, slick and salesy, that's one way of weeding out the imposters or the whatever, but there's so many legitimate sounding people out there. So, I mean, what kind of advice would you give the audience about, what to listen to, what not to listen to, where to go? How do you really validate, what this is really all about,
Oh man, that's a great question. And I think that the rise of AI is making this even more difficult because, anybody can put something out there that sounds great, right? Like I met a lady that was an agent, and I was going to meet her in a meeting, and I went to her webpage to see, see what she was about. And it was slick and polished and professional and just awesome. And then I started talking with her, and I was like, she didn't write that. Like, there's no way. There's no way. So I think if there's an opportunity to have a conversation one-on-one with somebody, I think that's really helpful because, you can't AI your live conversations in person or on a Zoom call or the phone. Um, and just see if there's depth to what they're presenting, if there's conviction to what they're presenting, or if this is just a way to sell life insurance, if this is just um, a sales scheme because they want to be rich and famous or whatever. And because honestly, social media, I think that some of the problem that this presents is it pushes people to the forefront. And I'm not saying everybody is in this camp at all, but sometimes it pushes people to the forefront who are talented marketers and talented in social media and might not be might not have as much competency in the thing that they're actually putting out there. Whereas some people that have such a depth of understanding, just rich knowledge in a subject field, they might not be on social media at all. They might not even have a website. So it's easy to get caught in that, the glitz and the glamour and the flashy videos and all that. But I've always just said I want to learn. I want to learn from somebody who is going to teach me and give me the why, not just the shove something down my throat and you should do this because you said you wanted to do IBC or whatever it is. Like, tell me why. Tell me why. I want to understand. I want to have a foundation of understanding, and that's the people I want to work with as well. Not people that are just looking for a quick fix. Let me come to you with a problem. Can you fix it? Give me an illustration as quickly as possible. Okay, well, hold up. Why are we doing this? What are you trying to accomplish? Do you even understand? Are you asking the right questions? Because I see that a lot. People, they're asking the questions that they know how to ask. They're not really asking questions that are going to help them move the needle. So you can spend a lot of time on, yeah, I mean, I can answer that. We can go through all that if you want, but it's really not going to help you solve the problem that you don't know you have.
So let's deconstruct that. So when you say they don't even understand the why, they're just looking for a big number, right? Okay, so what's an example of a why question? Why do you really want to do this?
I think that you have to back up even further than that. And this is coming from my experience because I started out asking all the wrong questions too. I started out wanting to know about, okay, well, how does this whole life policy work? And what's a paid up additions and what's a MEC and what's all valid things to know, right? But I think like so many other people, I was trying to look at the product and compare that to all the, like, okay, well, how does that compare to my Roth IRA? How does that compare to this or that? When really, I think Jason Rose says this a lot. Look, what does that have to do with financing the things that you're trying to finance in life, right? And do you realize that you're already a banker? You're just banking on someone else's terms. You're carrying out activities and things that are going to benefit someone else for the rest of your life. And what we're saying is if we can take that back, if you can start building your own banking system, your own banking business, then all these things you're going to do anyway, they can profit you and your family for the rest of your life instead of someone else. And until you understand that, then it's just like, oh, it's something over here on the side that, yeah, I kind of use it for, savings account. And I don't really understand it. I really don't know what it does. Maybe I'll use it someday. Maybe I won't. But if we can see it, like you said, David, as a foundation, like we're uninstalling an operating system on our computer. We want to use that and reinstalling something else that's different. That's a different place to start from. Like you said, that puts us in total control, that brings so much peace of mind. And it takes a while. It is like sometimes I say it's kind of like a banking business in a box. It's like a turnkey. Like we're going to give you everything that you need to start this, to do this. But just like any other business, you're going to have to put in some work. You're going to have to learn about the things that make the business go. You're going to have to capitalize the business, right? You're going to have to put the money in. There's going to be some upfront cost, but you're going to, why does anybody do that? Why do you start a business? Because you know it's going to pay off in the long run. And this is something that you don't hope it's going to pay off in the long run. You know, it's guaranteed to pay off in the long run. So I don't know. It's taken me a long time. I mean, relatively, I've been in this maybe 5 years, but to start thinking about it in terms of the bigger picture, this isn't just a product. It's not just a Band-Aid. We're not trying to treat symptoms. We're trying to go and cure the disease, so that the symptoms go away.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's excellent. Thank you. I will make a point though. They're not really a banker. They're more of a customer. Okay. Until they become their own banker with a small b, they're their customer. And as a customer, you're paying, okay, for services, and you're losing, interest to that bank or whatever commodity it is. So, knowing the characters in the play, this Nelson talks about this in the seminar all the time. The characters in their play, Nelson talks about it, becoming your own banker, the book, is probably an important way to get your mind straightened out about if you understand the characters in the play, who's the banker, who's the customer of the bank, and you understand the interactions, you understand where the money flows in that scenario, then to change places with that banker, both in your behavior and also creating that entity, that permanent whole life cash value, dividend paying whole life policy or policies. I always like to get that in there all the time, so we don't mix up with somebody who's trying to sell an IUL. But anyway, then that helps with that paradigm shift, and like you suggested earlier about imagination is so critically important to understand how this works. And so we get comments all the time on these podcasts when we put them on YouTube about, well, I listened for 30 minutes and I still didn't understand what you guys were talking about. What a waste of time. But keep those comments coming, right, Lee? No.
I think sometimes it helps to take it out of the realm of finance to help people. Like, I'm big on analogies. And once you start thinking differently, it's like you see it everywhere. Like, I've been to the airport a couple of times recently, a little more often than usual. And I was thinking about how you drop your car off at the airport, you pay them to keep it, and then you go to your destination, you rent another car, probably very similar, right? And pay them $100 a day to rent the car. It's like, what if there was this worked differently? What if they paid you $5 a day to leave your car at the airport, and you sign off on a little waiver, they're going to pay you $5 a day. But in the fine print, it's kind of understood, but they don't really advertise this. While you're gone, they're going to rent your car out to other people. They're going to go charge somebody else $100 a day to drive your car around. And then when you get to your destination, you can rent their car and then pay them $100 a day. Like, this is kind of how banking works currently. We give all of our money to a bank, to a commercial bank. They take our money. It doesn't sit there in the vault. They take it and rent it out to other people, collect interest on that. And then if we need to turn around and get a loan from the bank, then they're like, oh, sure, but we're going to charge you a whole heck of a lot more. And so I don't know. I see it in so many places now. I'm like, oh, that's kind of like that. And that kind of, Lee, you're asking about beaver bankers. I wrote a children's book, kind of with that same idea in mind. How do we teach this and not talk about money so much, that it's more conceptual and people can understand? It's almost like you have to kind of step away from the whole finances side of things to think differently, and then come apply that back to that arena. And one day I say it's a divine spark. Just had this idea. What about beavers? You should learn about beavers. Like, beavers. I don't know anything about beavers. But I just Googled, tell me, I started looking things up, and I know that they make a dam, and I know that they build a lodge and all this, but really it's a great analogy for our financial lives that everything, the flow of money through our lives is kind of like a river. And most of us have millions of dollars pass through our hands through a lifetime, but not much to show for it. It's all just flowing away to other people. And that's normal. That's the default. But if there's a way to dam up that little stream, that river, and start collecting, build this pond, build this other environment like the beavers do, um, then it becomes advantageous for us. It becomes something we can hang on to. It becomes something that other generations can benefit from. Anyway, so that was kind of, I might be jumping ahead here, but that was kind of the idea, the genesis behind that little book. And I've kind of quit calling it a children's book. And I've started saying it's disguised as a children's book because I have a lot of adults that say, oh, okay, yeah, that I see what you're saying now. That makes sense. Actually, Kim told me a story that I loved. She's told me a couple of stories. She's been very encouraging with this little book. But she said they had run into a family in town at an open house or something for real estate, and they practice infinite banking. And so she was asking, the grandmother was with them, oh, have you guys read Beaver Makers? I think your kids would really love it. And the grandmother was like, yes. In fact, I read that to them recently, and I finally understand what you guys are talking about. That was like the greatest compliment ever for somebody to connect the dots and get that. And the other thing that Kim told me that was such a huge blessing, it just blew my mind, was she told me, she said, this book has really meant a lot to our family and just a tribute to Nelson and all that. And she said, you don't probably know this, but he used to walk around. He'd love to walk around in the timberland that he had, and he would always talk about the beavers. And I had no idea, and so that was really cool. That was just to hear that story. And because I never had the privilege of meeting Nelson. I wish I would have. I found out he would have been in my area several times, before he passed away. And I didn't know. But I'm thankful for all the videos that you guys have compiled and the YouTube channel and all that to kind of get to know somebody that I'm not going to meet this side of heaven.
Oh yeah.
But lots of wisdom there.
You guys are really been close. But when I think of Beaver Bankers, I think of cogeneration also. And Nelson was big with that. He was a forester, so he was interested in pulp mills, raising trees, and then he say slaughtering them. They're pine trees, okay? These aren't hardwood, so we're not destroying the environment. And then burning the bark to generate energy to process the paper plants and whatnot. So cogeneration. So beaver, really same thing. You think put a turbine in that dam and generate some electricity. So yeah. But anyway, those are great comments about Kim, who's my wife, by the way, for folks who don't understand that, who's Nelson's daughter. Yeah. So yeah, she tells stories. They'd be driving between Athens, Georgia, and Birmingham, Alabama. He'd drive by a cotton field and stop. And they'll get out of the car and they go look at and pick cotton and talk about it and how it's made, made shirts and whatnot. And he was big into education, and it was not all related to reading. It was hands-on type of stuff, So he really appreciated that type of learning environment.
Yeah, we've heard so many positive comments and stories about your book, and just how, like you said, it has just really impacted adults who didn't quite understand, this concept. And it just really did a great job of breaking it down. And, your story about analogies and just, let's take the finance out of it. That's just a great way for people to really wrap their heads around this concept. So, it's just been a great addition to the library for so many different practitioners and the clients' families that they work with. So, thanks for putting that book together and for the time I know that you put into that. That's been a great project.
Well, thank you. It was a fun learning experience to do that. Again, I'd never set out to be a children's book author ever. That was not on the bingo card, but it seemed like there's a lot of surprises in life like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Well, you mentioned earlier you were talking about your mentor, Bruce. And, can you share with us just a little bit about, you know, why that was so important to have, a strong mentor when you were first starting this process of becoming an IBC practitioner?
Yeah, you bet. So I met Bruce kind of by accident, I guess. I was working with a different insurance agency, with an IMO, and you don't know what you don't know at the beginning. And I remember sitting down with them and saying, "Hey, this is my goal. I want to be an expert in IBC. Can I do that here at the IMO?" They're like, "Absolutely, yes. Come on." And so I joined up and I got involved, and it was really good for, learning the industry and learning, the basics and how to practice talking to people. I was having to cold call people. It was not talking about IBC. It was selling mortgage protection or some term policies, and I'm talking to people that don't want to talk to me and are hanging up on me, cussing. I was in tears. I was like, no, this is not what I wanted to do. Right. I mean, there was good. So I'm trying to paint this. There was really a lot of good that came out of it too. But I did realize after a while that I probably wasn't going to get all my IBC questions answered in this place where I was. So I started looking elsewhere. I tuned into the Money Advantage podcast. That kind of became my go-to, that Bruce Wayner and Rachel Marshall do. And really just really learned a lot from that podcast. And I had signed up on their website for like a free video or something. And then I get in their campaign and, they're every week said, "Hey, book a call. Why haven't you booked a call nicely?" And so finally I just responded and I said, "Hey, I'm an agent. I'm not looking for a policy. I already have a policy, but if you guys have any kind of agent focused training, I'm desperate for that. Like I want to learn. I know that there's more to this that I don't know." Um, and Rachel responded to me. I was shocked. And she said, "Well, we really don't have anything like that right now, but I'll put you on, you can get on Bruce's calendar and have a conversation about potential mentorship or that kind of thing." I was just absolutely floored. What? Like these are celebrities in my mind, right? And they would be willing to have a conversation with me. And so I did. I got on Bruce's calendar and I told him my story and kind of what I was trying to do, what I was looking for. And he was kind enough. He probably gave me an hour of his time every week for 9 months, a year before I even joined the NNI, did anything. So he just really was very open handed, very generous. He just let me ask my questions. He would answer my questions, and I'm realizing, golly, there's so much more I need to learn. So he really encouraged me to join the practitioner program, to get involved with the NNI. And when you're young and you're just starting out, well, I don't know how young I was, but in the industry, and you're not making much money, and everything's inconvenient and hard. And he just gave me some really good advice. He said, there's never going to be a good time. There's never going to be a perfect time. It's always going to have a cost associated with it. But if you'll go ahead and take that step, it can be life changing. And it has been. I think that association and being a part of the NNI and the people I've met through that, have really been instrumental in just my progression as a practitioner, as just in using my own system as well. So I'm very, very thankful for that interaction, for his open-handedness, his generosity with his time. And then I still work with them now. So it's just been a neat relationship that's still a big part of my life. And just such great people in this industry. If you can align yourself, I think, they're in the right places.
Well, and y'all have got a great group. It sounds like, I don't know how often y'all get together and connect, but it seems like you've got kind of like a built-in group within the NNI community of, regular contact with others. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So because Bruce is so, really does enjoy teaching and mentoring, he obviously gets quite a few people that are interested in that sort of arrangement. So a couple of years ago, he was mentoring 5 or 6 different people and just kind of spinning too many plates. And then he just thought, well, why am I doing this all in separate places? We should just have one meeting. Everybody can get together. And so we just started every Tuesday morning getting together and meeting and talking about whatever topics of the day there was. And it's kind of just grown from there to, and he doesn't limit it to people in his agency. I think he wants people who are like-minded that want to grow and learn, that are practitioners or on their way to being practitioners, kind of an iron sharpening iron kind of thing. And that's been really neat. Just a neat community to get to know people, and on a little bit more of a personal level, to know people when you come to Think Tank or come to Coaching Academy, like, oh yeah, that's you. I've seen you in the little box, but this is you in person. So it's just really a value add. I think anytime you can do things together, anytime you can do things as a group, just to encourage each other, have that support, have that network of places you can go and ask questions or pitch ideas, talk about different things. So it's been super good.
Yeah, it's good. I like those communities when they community. The connections are important. Like, I'll harp on that every week too. So I'm glad you brought that up today.
Well, and I think that that's something that, so many people could just, because of, technology today, that is one of the blessings of it, is we all can connect with each other easily, and, just kind of create your own group of a small group of people who you can lean on and ask questions, and just, hey, how do you handle this, and, whatnot, and just your own little built-in resource group. And it's just, that's kind of just such a great thing to see that's blossomed out of this NNI community, which is, as you said before, just so generous with their time. And that's one of the things that people who are new to this community, it kind of, they're kind of blown away by it. And initially they're like, wow, I mean, at the think tanks, at the coaching academies, people are like, this is just incredible how, welcoming everyone has been, and how, generous and encouraging all these practitioners are. And so I think that's one of the things that's just, really special about the Authorized IBC practitioner community.
And now you're a mentor, Becca.
I am. Yeah. It's super. I love it. This is one of my, I kind of see it like, I have a background in church leadership and being on staff with church. And so to me, whether it's a mentee or a client, it's kind of like discipleship, right? Like, I'm going to learn from the people who are ahead of me. I'm going to pass that on to the people who are coming up. But the key to all that is just relationship. I don't ever want this to be transactional. Like, okay, I got your policy enforcer. Good. See ya. Good luck. And same thing with mentees. And I'm thrilled for the opportunity, because I feel like so much has been given to me, and I can, pay that back forward. I don't know, to the next person, and get to know people. That's the true, I think the true reward in all this is the relationships, and being able to grow with people and challenge each other's thinking. And, why do you think that? Or why do you think that way? Have you thought about this? Have you ever considered? Oh, yeah. And just to see those light bulbs come on, either in me or in other people, that's super rewarding. Just to see people kind of breaking free of this, what we've been wired to believe about money and about how we have to do money. That's the neatest thing, in my opinion. And I want to spread that message. I think Nelson was such a good steward of the message that, even that he would say he was given, right? He said this was a response to a prayer. Like, it hit him like a bat between the eyes. Like, it's all right here. And so I think, even never meeting Nelson, I kind of think of myself as a second generation agent, because I didn't learn from Nelson, but I'm learning from people who learned from Nelson. And so, I want to be a good steward of that message as well. In whatever form that takes, whether that's with clients or other agents or whoever. If people are willing to learn, I think that's what I'm looking for. Whoever it is, I'm happy to share what I've learned and walk with you on this road. If you're open to that and open to to maybe being challenged in the way you've been taught and considering a different option.
Well, one of the challenges, and I don't know if you can address this or not, but I'm gonna lay it out there, is, you know, folks that just don't have that much cash flow. Okay, either they're heavily in debt and they're servicing that plus trying to live. They maybe have two incomes. They're just like a lot of Americans are they're struggling. So
Yeah.
one of the biggest things we get is like, well, how do I start?
Yeah.
Do you get that much in your?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we get all across the spectrum, of people who are scraping by, or people who are like, hey, I got this extra $100,000. What do I do with it? Kind of thing. But I come back to the fact that Nelson, he said in his book that he wrote this for the layperson, that his examples are for the average everyday American. I think that's one of the misconceptions. Oh, you have to have a bunch of money to do this. And I think that there are strategies that you can, and this is an area where I'm learning and I'm growing, but of not just using your free cash flow, but how do we incorporate, if it'll let me get started, if it'll help me pay more premium, can I incorporate some of my expenses into this? Nelson talks about the heart and lung machine when he had heart surgery, right? And he said, he had a bad heart. They had to take that out and keep it alive on this heart and lung machine for a little while until they could, fix everything and put it back. And so I think sometimes there's that same transition of, okay, I'm in a bad place financially. This isn't going like I thought it could. How do I lean on this strategy? How do I lean on this loan provision and this temporarily, like the heart and lung machine, until I can get to a better place, until that policy gets seasoned, until it starts, really, really, really working for me in an efficient manner. So it's almost like that heart transplant, right? We're taking out a bad heart and we're putting in a new one. That's kind of a big deal. But we can leverage the options that we have and the control that we have within this system to help us get to that next place in the meantime. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does. And yeah, I'll try to translate a little bit. Everybody needs to start redirecting their money into a whole life policy or multiple policies to get started. Okay. And, what premium dollar can you, I don't want to say afford, but there's a hurt trigger. Okay. A pain indicator. So what's the highest pain you can accept to pay premiums, whether it be monthly, quarterly, or annually. And secondly, find somebody like Becca who can help you find dollars, because a lot of people waste money is going out red dollars instead of green dollars, is going the wrong way. And Mark Benson talks about this a lot, to recover those dollars and redirect those dollars into premium payments. So that's where you start. And then as you start to kill debt, then you redirect those dollars back into your policy and potentially pay more paid up additions riders, if you contractually can, or maybe unscheduled PUA payments. But you build, and then when you get to the point where you can't pay any more premiums into a policy because of the contractual constraints, then you start another one, and that's how you do it. So it's almost like the lifestyle change goes hand in hand with how you build your system. Okay, so the starting line is so critically important, and in having a coach like you, where you can continually revisit what does this look like and how am I doing, so you can expand your system. And a system, the definition of a system is a portfolio of life insurance policies. Okay.
Yeah, and I think my own personal understanding and journey has kind of been like that too. When I first started, I got my first policy, I just thought of it as, oh, this is my savings, this is safe money, I'm just going to kind of leave it alone. I wasn't sure what to do with it. And since then, more and more we're trying to make that the financial hub of our lives. Like, how much can we, because we're seeing the benefit of that. It's like when you start a policy, you're like pegging the start of a compounding interest curve that's going to grow uninterrupted for the rest of your life on a guaranteed basis. We're starting, that's what we're starting when we start a policy. And so anything that doesn't go into that policy it's going to be interrupted every time you spend. Like if you take $1 and go down to the convenience store and buy a Coke, you think that just cost you $1, right? Like, no big deal. But that's what you see. But what you don't see is what that dollar could have grown into. Like, what could that have been if we put it to work? That opportunity cost there. That's the unseen, I think, that Nelson talks about. We don't see that it was way more than just that dollar. So could we move our dollars into an environment where it's on that compounding curve? It's not getting interrupted every time we spend. And we can borrow against that, and pay back and do the things we need to do without interrupting the compounding. And people think you can get compound growth in other places. Like I saw a post from Susie Orman or something the other day on Facebook talking about how, X amount in the stock market is going to compound and and you're going to get, but what I didn't realize is that true compounding can't ever go down. Like every time if the stock goes down, you're interrupting that compounding. You're starting from a lower place. And when I was 26, I went and I was a teacher at the time. And I was very interested in money and finance and all those things and trying to do all the right things that they say to do. So I thought, I'm going to go open a Roth IRA. So I think that's the thing. That's the smart thing to do. I'm going to have my teacher retirement, but I'm going to do this too. And so I went in and I think I was starting at like $200 a month, something like that. And I was so excited. I was so excited that they told me this is going to grow like 7-8% a year. So I come home and I use a compound interest calculator and I'm like, okay, $200 a month, 7 or 8% a year, compounded for the rest. I'm going to be rich. This is incredible. And so when I started learning about IBC, I was like, I'm curious, like, because I'd never really looked at it real closely. I know it went up and went down. It's probably doing its thing. And I called the company up and I said, hey, can you just tell me, like, when did I start this? How much have I put in and what's the total right now? And so they told me, and I did just some 5th grade math and tried to calculate like a rate of return. And it was like 4.7 or something like that, which, okay, that's okay. But that's not the 7 or 8%, like you said, when I thought I was going to be rich, and now it's 20 years later and this hasn't exactly worked out. And I'm not saying it can't, right? But this was my experience. And so the next time I had a meeting with my financial lady, I was asking her, I was like, now explain to me, because she handed me my little spiral. She's like, you look, this is doing great. It's 7.8% return. Like, okay, so explain to me, why am I getting a different, like my math is different? Oh, well, it's more complicated than that. And the formula we use goes around the block and you have to do a computer to figure these things out. And I was just like, but I don't have any more money. Like, you're telling me I've done these incredible things, but it has not done what I thought it would. And so again, people either out of, I'm going to say either out of, we just don't know what we don't know. And so when somebody tells you this is what it's going to do, you take them at their word. Okay, great. But then you're not accounting for, what about when the market goes down? If it's taxable, what about when taxes are due? What are those fees really doing? Okay, so look, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying there's things that maybe aren't explained in detail, because there's some, they want us to put our money there, and we might not put our money there if we really knew how that works. So maybe that's a rabbit trail, but that was very eye-opening for me, just to say, wow, this didn't really pan out the way I thought, and I can't get to that money. If I take it out, I guess I could put it back, but then I'm subject to the limits, and then anyway, there's all these other factors.
No, if the government offers you a solution to a problem they started, and aren't you suspicious of their intentions? We're going to tax us not at you, but we're going to provide you an alternative to defer your taxes. Like, oh, gee, thank you. But I don't want to continue this conversation because I'm not qualified to, but I am looking hard at this mutual fund. I'm trying to figure out how that really works, because that's going nowhere fast either. So there you go. Anyway, yeah, but like you said earlier in the conversation, the IBC, there's no direct correlation to a qualified plan or any other type of savings account or any qualified plan that's supposed to be built upon retirement, because it's IBC is so much more than that. And because it's actually, Nelson used to say over and over again, it's not necessarily the insurance company that's generating great returns. It's the behavior of the policy owner and how they use that policy responsibly to recover that interest as they buy major items in their life. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, it takes a long time to really figure this out, really. And some people get it fast, some people don't. But I guess what I'm saying is it takes a while before you start really seeing the benefit of the growth, unless you start off with a whole bunch of money, which a lot of folks don't have access to. So, yeah.
Well, Becca, I know you said that you feel like you're relatively new in this world, but can you share with us any ways that you have seen IBC, change your clients' lives or impact their lives?
Yeah, you bet. Probably my favorite story. I have you're not supposed to have clients' favorites, but I do have one lady that's one of my favorites for sure. I mean, she just gets it. Like this, yeah, this makes sense to me. And they took out a policy probably 3 or 4 years ago, and she was so excited. And they were just really good, had good money habits. They weren't in debt. She saw this as an opportunity to really make some good moves, money moves, and get them going in the right direction. And funded it faithfully for 2 or 3 years. And then they just had a storm hit. I mean, all at once. Her daughter had an injury, had to have knee surgery. Her husband hurt his back, and he had to have some kind of like specialized surgery, had to go out of state, travel to do that. He was out of work for a while because it couldn't work. There was a drought. They had to sell off their herd of cattle. I mean, it was just like everything all at once. And she's trying to manage all this. So she calls me up and she's like, hey, we've just got all this stuff going on. Can we sit down? Can we talk about it? And so I met up with her, and we're going through everything that's happened. And they've racked up some debt, obviously, through all this. And she's not used to having debt. She's like, I'm so frustrated. I don't like how this feels, And so we're going through everything, and we're looking at their policy and the cash values that they had in their policy. And it was like they had exactly what they needed to pay off everything and just bring it all into their policy. And so I'm showing her this, and I was like, okay, now how do you feel like this is going to be a big policy loan? How do you feel about that? And she said, well, I'd rather owe it here than to all these other people. Like this, she said, this is doable. This is doable. And she said, and we can pay this off as we can, right? There's no schedule. Right. That's exactly right. You're in charge. You're in control. So it's just like I just could almost visibly see just the stress lift and the relief, because she was, it wasn't their fault. They hadn't gotten into the situation because they'd been irresponsible or anything like that. But all of a sudden they've got this lifeboat almost. And the great thing is that even though they're going to use it and they're going to pay it back, it hasn't changed the final result. It hasn't changed where this is going to increase to in the future. It hasn't changed what death benefit is going to pay out as long as they pay that loan back, those kinds of things. And so that was really fun to just be able to just offer hope to somebody who was in a tight spot and didn't even realize that they had already provided the answer, right? It was already done. They hadn't realized that yet. And so that was really cool. And this is like a personal story with us, but my daughter was an 8th grader last year. And at the first of the school year, they were pitching this idea for a study abroad international trip over spring break. And she really wanted to go. And I was really surprised because she's kind of in my shadow usually up until now. Like, you're going to go to Europe by yourself? Like, okay, or with a group. And we just told her, we was like, okay, if you can raise the money, you've got 6 months or so, if you can raise the money to go on this trip, then you can go. And so she's pumped, she's excited. And the next day she comes home from school and she's just distraught, just in tears. Like, what is wrong? What's going on? She's like, Mom, I really, really, really want to go on this trip, but I just found out that the first payment's like $1,500 and it's due in 10 days. She's like, and I know I can raise the money, but I don't think I can do it in 10 days. And she's just crying on the couch. She'd be so embarrassed. Forgive me, Paisley, for telling the story. Um, but I was like, okay, calm down, because let's think this through. Like, we have, all of our kids have policies on themselves, or we own the policies on them. That this is kind of neat too. A little sidetrack. My parents funded the policies. We own them. They're on my kids, and they will ultimately benefit our grandkids. It's like 4 generations all working together, all pulling together, okay, to do stuff like this story, right? To make this possible. So I told Paisley, I said, here's what we can do. You have this money in your policy. We can borrow it from the insurance company. And then whenever you raise the money, we'll just pay it back. And so we can have it in 2 or 3 days. 10 days is no problem. And she just looked at me. She's like, what? Like, we can do that? I'm like, yeah, we can do that. It was just like instant relief. Oh, okay. We have options, right? We have different things that we can do. And so I made her come with me, and I showed her on the computer. I was like, okay, here's your policy. This is how we take a loan. And then she's like, that's it? Like, that's it. That's all we do. And then when she did raise the money. She babysat, she sent out letters, she did the work, when she got the money back, I'd come over to the computer. I'm going to show you, this is how we repay a loan. That's it. Like, that's it. And so I think it's so important to teach our kids, to teach the next generation. Joe DeFazio, who I work with real closely, he'll say to share the blueprint. That's really important, because you don't want it to just be, oh, we got all this money in a death benefit and let's go blow it, right? Now we want to keep this going. I mean, it could be the next generation doesn't have to see a bank, or my grandkids don't even, it's just all they know. And there's that stress and that fear and that just constant pressure of money. Maybe they never have to experience that, because we've built a different type of environment for them to store their finances and do their banking with. And I think that's incredibly, I don't know, just a powerful idea that we could do that for the generations that come. It's always the hardest for generation 1, right? You got to get through those first few years of, this is kind of getting going, right? But to see what that can accomplish, it's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. No, those are great, real life examples of, what the infinite banking concept, can, when it's implemented correctly, what it can do for people in their lives. And thank you so much for sharing those stories. As we wrap up this episode and this time with you, we always ask our guests, what does the infinite banking concept mean to you?
I think to me, it's like, it's a way out of a system that's not built for our benefit. It's so many other things, but I think back to like Romans 12:2 says, don't be conformed to the patterns of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I think that's what this does. It's like, we know that we live in a fallen world, but I think that God, I don't think he hides things from us, but he hides things for us that would help us along, ideas and strategies. And I think he hid this idea for Nelson to find. And again, he's passed that along to us. And so I think it's a way for us. I mean, nothing's perfect, right? Nothing's going to be perfect, but to be able to say, I'm going to step outside of this system that's really built on greed. There's a lot of corruption. I'm not saying the people at my local bank are bad people. I'm not saying that at all, but just the system in general and how it works. It's taking everything I have to give and profiting someone else. And it's a way to step out of that and say, no, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to control that for my family. I'm going to steward that the way I feel like is honoring to God, and leaves a legacy that blesses the next generation, that has all these things that to me are so much better options. And it's going to take me a few years to get it rolling, and that's okay. That's okay. Anything worth doing is worth some effort. It's the same thing with exercise or eating right or anything like that. We're establishing new habits. We're establishing new ways of doing things that are going to make everything better. And so for me, it's that kind of freedom. It's that kind of choice to choose a different way that's more aligned with what I believe. That's more aligned with what my goals. That's more aligned with what I want for my family going forward. And I think that's a really cool option to be able to have. And like you said, David, it's not for everybody. Not everybody's going to see it. And that's okay. But I think everybody deserves to know that they have that option's there.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much, Becca.
You bet. Thanks for having me on. Gosh, an hour's flown by for me. I don't know.